This is Scott Becker with the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast. Today, we've got an interview with a business founder, a brilliant engineer turned consultant, Liz Hutson. Liz is going to talk to us about a subject that's near and dear to my heart and my thinking about progress versus perfection in business and lots of different efforts. Liz, let me tee it up. Can you take a moment to introduce yourself, and then we'll tee up the topic of the day. Thank you.
Sounds great. Yes, Scott, I'm Liz Hutson. I'm the founder and principal consultant of EGH, LLC. We are a consulting firm that provides products and service consulting, mostly in the private equity space.
Thank you. And we talk about this concept often, but people trying to perfect things before they commercialize them, before they finish them, before they do what have you, and talk about that mindset of trying for that versus getting a product out, what people often talk about as the minimum viable product, and then improving from there, and what the right balance should be between these concepts of perfection versus progress.
There you go. Yeah, that's right. So I think progress over perfection, as you described, is that concept where we go ahead and try things out before they're 100% figured out. So it allows us to essentially move forward with things when you have perhaps 80% of the data versus spinning for a long time to get that last 20%. And so the value of doing that, in my opinion, is that we keep things moving. It allows us to test things out and get feedback. We're continuously improving as we go versus getting stuck on perfection and then delaying the start. Just this idea of roughly right and getting started is better than 100% perfect and then getting delayed. Now, I think there's some caution with this, though, Scott. I think, we always want to consider making sure, when we're considering that balance of progress and perfection to the question that you asked, how do we consider how it fits into something you and I talk a lot about, which is this sort of three-pronged strategic filter, which is, what is the strategy of the company or yourself, right? Well, first and foremost, what is your strategy and how does that concept, that new idea fit into it? Second thing is, what is your core competency? And so what it is that you're getting into it, does it fit into that? And lastly, of course, is there a customer need? So that's the first filter to that. And then the second thing that's really important is that when you think about progress over perfection, we have to be careful, have to use some caution when it relates to things like safety and quality, right? We don't want to be foolish or cavalier in the approach that could have an impact to customer safety. So we want to make sure we're testing things well, making sure quality is solid, safety is of utmost concern, but not spinning out too much on unrelated or micro details that could keep us spinning for a long time versus getting started.
And how do you balance this issue? And we talk often salespeople working for one of our media companies in two different perspectives. We talk about it as ready, aim, fire, where a salesperson starts making calls relatively quickly, without too much delay, versus ready, aim, fire, and they sort of never get there because they get so paralyzed by analyzing it, so forth. Now, in a very similar concept, we talk about minimum viable product, and we all know you never get a chance to make a first impression again. So there's this fine line between getting out there with a nice enough product versus something I often see. I've been an advisor to several different software companies, often venture capital funded by some of the greatest VC funds in the world, and we even see it there where people are scared to commercialize too early and end up really suffering because they can't get to market actually. How do you balance a good enough initial product that will not turn people off versus the need, to make a great first impression versus need to get out there and start actually talking to customers, see if they actually want what you're doing?
Yeah, that's right. You talk about product or service development, right? It could be IT solutions. It could be actual widgets that we're trying to build. A lot of times when you're talking about product development, it is time sensitive, right? So that first to market position is critical. And so we want to be sensitive to that timing in creating new products. But to your point, Scott, if we come out with that first to market and it's garbage, that's not good either, right? So what's that sweet spot that we need to find? Me personally, I love the concept of stage gate. Stage gate is a good process that helps provide really objective criteria for success on go, no-go decision points. And it helps with a really clear roadmap, a checklist to help make things happen. So what you're doing then is you're making sure you're considering all the different things around, you know, a business case, quality considerations, design development, making sure that we're testing things really well. It gives you that checklist, but it doesn't have you spinning. And then I think as we get into some of those areas, there are people on the team that want to dive deeper, like you said, aim, that on the minutia, then is necessary, right? So they're spinning on details that are just not needed. So I think if the strategic filter is good, the safety and the quality is sound, then it's time to get moving and keep going with progress versus spinning to hit perfection. I think a guidance like a stage gate process, for example, there's a number of processes that help you with that go, no go decision point and a roadmap to get there. But I think if you use that methodology, it helps you get there. And, you know, at the end of the day, I oftentimes think, no matter how much time you spend on something and you spin and you spin and spin, when you launch it, it will never be perfect. It just won't be. There will be some things that were surprising, that we didn't anticipate, that we couldn't have understood that was going to happen. But I think once we get to launch, you always have the opportunity to improve with version 2.0, 3.0, as you're getting feedback from the market, and you can make that continuous improvement kind of moves along the way.
I think that's so important. And, you know, you have this fine balance of people, and you're one of the great ones at both executing brightly and commercializing well. And you do have this fine balance of people that are overly commercial, getting out too quickly with customers, versus people that are commercial and technical and being able to make sure they get back up what they're saying. And it is that fine line. But I do think you have to be conscious of that we see people that are very smart often delay too long in taking something out. We're trying to commercialize that. And I think you do have to guard against those instincts of very careful, very perfection-oriented, smart people. I think that's a great, you know, challenge and balance to hit.
That's right. That's right. I'd further jump on. So product development is an easy one where you can see that example. One other area that I would talk about as well that has really similar concepts to this is transition, and specifically around manufacturing transition. So oftentimes, particularly in private equity, a company is bought or a concept or a technology is purchased, and there is some kind of a manufacturing transition that needs to happen. Our team does a lot with this kind of work. So you're moving current operation facility from one location to another, you're consolidating. You know, our team has done work moving something from Boston to Juarez. We've done a project from California to Baltimore, from Louisville to China. We've done all kinds of projects in this vein. And in every single situation, a philosophy that we've adopted that I preach from the mountaintops, and I think this is really important when you're doing manufacturing transition, is first you want to make sure that the facility that you're moving from, that you stabilize that current state. Is the equipment solid? Is the process good? Is the work instructions good, right? Making sure that that's stable. And then you move it to the new location, but you stabilize it exactly as it was in the original location. Once it's set up, then you can look at optimization. Then you can look at perfecting that. And oftentimes clients will ask me, why is that? I mean, if we have this opportunity to optimize this, to make it better than it was before, why wouldn't you do that at the same time that you're moving this? And it really kind of comes down to two things. One is there's an element of speed. Anytime you're introducing optimization to that, you're adding time, you're adding more effort, more development that needs to happen. So you're slowing things down. So that's the first part of that, is that when you move it exactly as it is, there's an element of speed. The second thing, and this is probably even more important, is that when you start to monkey with optimizations in the middle of a transition, if there are issues when you set it up in the new location, you're not sure if those issues are there because you made the move or it's because of the changes that you made in the optimization. You've just messed with too many variables at the same time. So it's the same kind of concept of roughly right, get it out there, make it happen quickly, and then continuously improve as you go.
I think, Liz, on top of some of the points that you made, one of the points that I hear you speaking about is if you add too many complications to things, too many different variables at one time, rather than getting perfection, you don't even get a product out, or you end up with lots of challenges because you're trying to coordinate too many things. So I love this point, this discussion on perfection versus progress, or progress versus perfection. I could not agree more with the core thinking that you have on the subject, Liz. Again, Liz Hutson, founder, engineer, commercial guru, and genius. Liz Hutson at EGH. Thank you for joining us today on the Becker Private Equity and Business Podcast.
Thank you so much, Scott. Great to talk with you.